Let's flow. Let's connect and flow. Welcome. Welcome to Soul Awakening podcast series, The Quantum Energy. And we're talking about light language today. All right. I am so happy to be here with you today. If you have made it to part 8, we are done with the series after this. And there will be some more at a later date about science and spirituality converging because they do intersect. They are not saying the exact thing, this exact same thing, but they are two sides of the same coin. They're just expressing differently. Our spirituality talks a lot about our higher being and the science that we're learning about what goes on in our body. And the more science opens up and learns more about the universe, it learns more about our body, because our bodies are part of the universe. They have the same energy in them. They're just expressing differently. And so science is looking at it from one vantage point, and spirituality or awareness is giving a different vantage point. And that's okay. But I want everyone to know that this information isn't to change anybody's mind about light language or about it being called talking in tongues. It's not about to convince you what other people do or what other people don't do. Because everyone has a free will right to express who they are in this reality while the reality exists for them. Right? So what I will share with you now is what I found that research hasn't dealt with yet. Okay? Or what the relevant findings that I found out, because this really interests me, because I do speak light language. I have surrendered to the divine that speaks through me, to my higher self and to other higher selves for knowledge or giving knowledge or even healing. Right? I personally choose not to try to define it. Right? I choose not to put a label on it, but that's me. That doesn't have to be you. Okay? It doesn't have to say that if you're an awakened being, you need to be talking light language or speaking light language. No. When it comes to you, you get to discern it. And you get to say if it's for your highest and greatest good. And if you've come from a religious background, or even not a religious or spiritual background, you've come from that scientific background, you get to define it with those tools that you have. Because everything is energy, all right? So the relevant findings that I found are there is work being done on biophotons. They're tiny light particles emitted by our living cells. For example, one source noted that biophotons may act as a light-based communication network in the body, beyond just the chemicals and electrical signals, right? Just them being chemical and electrical, that they have a purpose, that they're communicating with each other, right? Okay. There was a theoretical paper done on quantum consciousness that proposed that the quantum process, which was spin and photon, and there was one more, so we'll just say etc., that may be involved in brain function. Okay, these are all openings that science is open to. Okay, there was an article that was done on energy healing with light. Okay, and they're dealing with light now, and through instruments, finding out that light is a basic healer, that it opens up areas of the body to start healing. They're finally understanding that our sun is not an enemy that we have always been told it was, that sunlight helps the cells reproduce healthy cells. Okay, science has to learn this because they're learning it from the physical. Okay, so it describes the healing of light with a light-based modality like color or visualization. That it claims that the energy shifts the field that supports healing. Okay, they're learning this. That's their terminology that they're using. Now it makes more sense to me, because basically when I learned, science in school, it made no sense. It made me say, what? It made me have a question that said, what more? Right? That there's got to be more. Okay. That's for me. That's why I started to do this deep dive. Okay. And in more spirituality or spiritual modality, let's say that, light language is described as a vibrational or an energetic form of communication beyond words, transmitting energy, intention, transmitting to and from certain codes within you and from outside of you, from another vibration, another dimension, to communicate across the vast universe, that the divine is speaking to us from within and from without, right? One document by Katiana Cordoba, and it's called Light Language, states that light language shifts your energy into a higher frequency. It triggers your brain into the gamma state or gamma wave state. So, and through this, it appears to give you more interpretive information. Science is just opening up this caveat. You can tell they're opening up this caveat by the advances of machinery that they are using with light energy. Okay. So, okay. So, light language as a spiritual or energetic modality that many are experiencing, including myself. Some practitioners call that a vibrational form of expression, right? Some call it a symbolic or gesture that of energy that emits codes, as we said. Scientists has told us that they believe everything is energy and everything is vibration. This is quantum physics. So light language is practice that it may be understood by science as being a vibration or a frequency, a way of transmitting energy beyond a ordinary verbal communication. But they need to do more testing, because that's what they do, is test, have a theory, test it, and test it again, and until it becomes fact for them. They're not saying that it doesn't exist. They're trying to figure out how it does. Right? How is this meaningful? Because science, their evidence is still emerging. It encourages you to explore the open awareness, not the necessity of expecting an outcome or proof, but just expanding the awareness to find out more. Right? Finding out more about biophotons, about the field research, looking it up for yourself. I had to look it up. It wasn't easy to find, and sometimes they didn't have the people's names that documented this because I had to even go deeper. And sometimes that takes time. So I'm giving you what I found, okay? But this means you can go find it too, right? So these biophotons or light field research is a bridge for you to learn more. Scientists started figuring out that cells emit energy or light, and they carry energy. That gives plausibility, maybe not proof, but plausibility to the claims that energetic light is communication. They're starting to find out that light sends the communication. The energy of these little photons in your body communicate from one body organ to your brain and back to the body organ. That's how you know you don't feel good or something's not right. Your body is speaking to you, right? Right? Okay, scientists say, proceed with caution. That being mindful of claims that light language cures all or activates DNA instantly without support, you have to take that. You have to go and dive into that and find out how it works for you, right? How it works for your highest and greatest good. But once you find out that it's for your highest and greatest good, go with that flow. I know I do. I know what I'm called to do. I know how it feels for me. Now, when I'm speaking light language, it might be to an individual that receives it, and it might be somebody else that comes in the room that goes, I don't understand that. I don't believe in that. It's not for them. Right? It's where a person is grounded. You get to combine your practices, your calling. And your calling might not be for everyone. And just because science says they haven't figured it out doesn't mean it's not a viable communication grid. Right? Right? So keep grounded. Combine your practices with this if this is a new communication modality for you, combine your meditation, combine your already found awareness and your self-care with it. Right? Light language is a tool. It might not be for everyone. That's what I found, right? Okay, here are some relevant studies and research that I found. They did, you can look up biophoton emissions of the human body. Okay, look that up. It says that these emissions, aka the biophotons, are rhythmic, left-right symmetry. They vibrate and move through diseased states, right? So, I mean, when I read that, I went, "Oh, okay." For me, it works. I'm not trying to remember. This is not about changing people's minds. This is not about taking you out of your religious vibrational state and pulling you into spirituality and trying to make it make sense for you. It's about you going and finding your growth and your expansion um, through through your knowledge. You could go find this information just like I did, right? I mean, I was all over the place with it, trying to find it, but I did find it. Maybe not in the drop down quality where I can give you people's names and quote dates and whatnot. On this one, it's about energy, truly quantum energy. It's about a ancient energy that is just now, not just now, but over a certain period of time has been opened up to the science community, and they're diving in to this vibrational uh, light quotient that's actually, ooh, light can heal. Okay. So and they're finding out more and more that it's within our biological system, right? It's introducing the idea of biophotons as emissions or emissions within our body. Look up the letters UPE under photon emissions. It's found in living systems. And it's not just in humans, it's in all living systems, all biological systems. There was a paper wrote called Quantum Physics Perspective, something like that, on electromagnetic and quantum field that were inside the brain. It discussed the classical brain waves. It discussed the quantum field and the different types of framework that may apply to your brain, to the energy, and to the field of all those systems combined together. Okay? This is just beginning of what we're gonna dive into, right? They did an article called A New Model of Consciousness. I think it's more a new model of consciousness as a quantum field. It proposed that modeling consciousness via a quantum field theory approach was less proven in the sociology, but useful in the theoretical linking. They just got to do more work, right? Welcome in, Grace. So I'm going to start with my section 1. It's called Setting the Frame, Why This Conversation Matters. when we talk about energy, as I always have, right? When we talk about energy, when we talk about light language, when we even talk about speaking in tongues, it's important to start with honesty. As far as I know it, I can't home in on honesty on anybody else, whether they're doing a light language translation or transmissions, or whether they're helping you start your light language or healing. This is all you have to do your due diligence, right? So for a lot of people, this is going to be exciting. It's a gift that's opening up for them. For others, it's going to be confusing. Maybe they're coming from one modality of religious belief that they're kind of moving from, that isn't for their highest and greatest good, deconstructing from it, and they're moving into another category that's opening them up spiritually, and it wasn't expected, right? So it's going to feel a little confusing. They might not even want it right now. And for some, they don't feel safe in it because maybe they've deconstructed from something that wasn't for their highest and greatest good. They spent a lot of time in it, and they just want to feel safe. They want to get to know themselves. Know thyself, right? So how can I say that better? If you've had a spiritual or a religious experience where your autonomy was taken away, you're not going to feel safe in being bombarded by energy that you're not sure of, right? And guess what? For an individual, that is okay. Why? Because it's their growth and their expansion that they're moving through. You can share with them, but you cannot make them believe what you believe or know what you know. Okay? So this is not about making someone believe that light language is part of the narrative. It's not about that they have to believe all of this in order to be on the spiritual tippy top. Everyone has the same gifts. What gifts open up to them and what they receive or choose to practice, that's their choices. This is not about making people believe that this is right and science is wrong. Okay? So So I'll put it this way, before we talk about this light language in this manner, we have to talk about choice, agency, and discernment. This conversation is not about me telling you what to believe, right? This is for anyone else who comes in this room, in this lesson, or in the replay on YouTube, or in the replay on my Spotify. I'm not telling you what choices to make. I'm not being the agency for the validation. I'm just giving you the information so that you can discern it. Okay? And I'm not trying to prove anything to you. I'm just sharing the information. It's about the framework, scientific, neurological, psychological, and spiritual, so that you can decide what resonates with you and your own body and your own journey and your own life. Anything that disconnects you from your intuition, from your grounding, from your critical thinking, for me, it's to me, that's not spiritual or religious. If it makes you feel pulled apart, not part of the wholeness. If it takes away your, go on, baby, sit, go sit. You got it. I have to sometimes encourage my dog. Good job. So, what was I saying? So, we want to encourage you to grow and expand. For me, I grew and I expand through my knowledge, through me asking questions. I've been asking questions since I was 3. I've been upsetting other people's apple cart because I ask questions, especially about religion and spirituality and the Bible and different things that were being said in church. Welcome in, Olivia. Uh, so I've been doing that part a while. There are other questions in my life that I would ask and get, kind of like run up against a wall. So I would end up having to ask these questions and do this, find this information, right? So it for me, I believe that anything that disconnects you from your intuition or your gut feeling, takes you away from your grounding, takes you away from your critical thinking, is not awakening. I believe you could call it outsourcing your power, giving it to someone else, just believing what they say, regardless of if it doesn't make you feel good. You just go with the flow because, oh, they said so, right? So for me, my real awakening was due to the opposite. I needed to ask questions that helped me bring me back to myself. Even today was one of those days. Olivia knows, or actually not today, yesterday. And then she had to call me today to go, hey, are you okay, girl? Because my egoic self was putting some doubts there of, am I on the, still on the right path? Am I being called, with all these things that the divine has called me to do? What's going on? Because with I got focused with other people and the way they were doing things, how they perceived um, their spirituality, or how they were blending their religiosity and their spirituality, and how, oh, it's not called a notion, it's called, where I would call it, you having your own perceptions. It was a notion, all about the different words. And I got caught up in that. That's vibration. Or listening to somebody, hearing them when they respond to the fact that I tell them I speak light language or I speak in tongues. And hearing that energy, that negative energy, right? And not and trying not to be dissuaded by it or hurt by it because they don't see me. Now, do they see me in the same light? That's not my job to have them see me in the same light. I can help explain it. Now I understand explaining it scientifically and explaining it, spiritual. Hold on just 1 second. I'm going to mute. Okay, I had to take that call really quickly. Thank you for being so patient with me. Um, so this is to let you know that when you have an awakening moment that shares a any, not just light language, not just speaking in tongues, not not just auto uh, uh, scrolling or intuitive reads or hits. All of these are gifts that are being awakened from by your higher being, but it's not imperative that you act or be activated in it, especially if you don't understand it. But know this, that it's okay to ask an embodying question about your gifts. Okay. So to me, the real awakening is that it brings you back to you, to your authentic self, so that you can hold on to everything you hear and discern it. You can decide what supports you and what doesn't. That's why I say take what resonates and leave what doesn't. Your nervous system and lived experiences matter. You get to decide how they grow you. You get to you get to label them. You get to have an explanation for them, and then you get to decide, hey, are they, is this gift growing me or is it not? The divine isn't saying that you have to participate in light language. If you don't feel it's for your highest and greatest good, move to the next one, right? Let's talk about energy again. We always talk about energy, what energy actually means in the deep dive. The word energy has been so overused. Sometimes I feel like sometimes it's meaningless, the actual word, not the actual energy. Sometimes it's about that label that we place on it, that everybody has to place on it, what energy to call it. Oh, we're going to call it the matrix, we're going to call it illusion, we're going to call it almighty God, we're going to call the energy the creator, we're going to call the energy he, we're going to call the energy she. We're right. Energy is movement. It has never been created, nor can it be destroyed. It just exists. It transforms, it becomes something else. It's always transforming. Energy is vibration. Energy is hertz. Energy is information in motion. Your nervous system runs on electrical signals that move through your body, through photons, through minuscular particles, through cells, blood cells, right? Your brain emits energy. And then that energy changes into emotions. It changes into your focus. It changes into your rest. Exactly. Discernment is very, very important. It doesn't make you a bad person because you want to discern spirituality. It doesn't make you a bad person because you want to discern what calling you received in a download. right? Have you ever had someone say, I feel your energy? And they're probably not talking about supernatural. They just felt your energy when you came in the room. They don't know where it came from or how they're reading your energy, but they felt your energy. It's possible that they may have been noticing the tone in your voice or your facial expressions or your body posture, your nervous system regulation or dysregulation. Are you fidgety? They might think of that as nervous energy, right? Scientists started to understand that humans are pattern recognition beings. Okay, so they came up with the label, but they had to do the research, right? They believe we read one another constantly. Sometimes we're unconsciously aware that we're doing this. Some are consciously aware, some are intuitive, and some have a gut feeling, right? Some use symbolic language, some use their scribing, some call the symbolic language chi or prana or spirit or breath. This is to describe the experiences that were, comma, are real, right? But can't be measured. That's where science has to catch up. They're trying to find it in measurement. They're not saying it doesn't exist. They're saying we're trying to find the measurement of it. Science is just, it's like I said, they're not trying to invalidate it. They're not trying to validate your experience. At least some of them aren't. It's simply using a different lens to try to make to to make it rational, or to make it, to find the yeah, rational, so that they can write it down and say, okay, here's the proof is in the pudding. We found this. We measured it. Here's the key bridge. Just because science hasn't fully mapped something doesn't mean it isn't real. It just means that they're still learning how to measure it. Does that make sense? Yeah. Wow, right? This blew my mind because it helps me to understand science now, where I didn't understand it when I was in the 10th grade. Right? What I understood was, from a religious point, or semi-religious point, by the time I was in 10th grade, it was going against creation. And not necessarily Adam and Eve, but against creation, against what I was learning about learning spiritually, right? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Right? Okay, so section 3, biophotons. Once again, the body has a light emitting system. Okay? So let's talk about light. Not metaphorical light, but measurable light, which is how science does it. Okay. Research showed that living cells, they had to figure this out. They had to build machines that figured it because they needed to figure out how the body worked. So cells emit ultra weak light, known as, we talked about this in the beginning of today's part 8, as biophotons. This light is not visual to the naked eye, but it can be detected with sensitive instruments. So that's why they're always, you know, uh, uh, building bigger and better, because they need to peer into us to find out what our higher beings already know about us. What they found was these emissions, and I spell that word emissions, are associated with the metabolic processes, cellular communication. So your cells are talking to each other. They're also talking to your organs, and your organs are talking to the cells, and the cells are talking to your brain, your heart, your lungs, right? They also found out that this is associated with biorhythms and levels of stress or coherence in the body. Right? Your body, made up of all this light, is communicating. So they're finding out, maybe you might say they're behind the eighth ball, because we're communicating with the divine within us, and we're communicating with the universe as well. And when we sleep, we're communicating with going to different vibrational places. We're traveling, right? So here's a simple term. When cells are functioning well and coherently, they emit light that tends to be more organized, or you can use the word flow. When the body is under stress, less organized, more inflammation, more imbalance, less coherence is seen or felt. You feel sometimes your body feels chaotic. Like when my hip acts up, when I sit too long, or when I sleep incorrectly, my body starts to talk to every part of me that wakes me up to get me to turn over or to move. I'm a human. I'm a higher being with a human body, with a conscious and aware mind. And scientists are leaning towards the human part internally, trying to figure it out. That's okay. Okay. Now, science don't believe that your thoughts, some scientists don't believe that your thoughts magically control the light, or that they manifest health by force. Even spirituality says you can't force it. You got to flow. But what it does suggest is that the body is not just chemical, it's also informational. Light becomes a kind of language of the cells used to communicate to another cell. That's why when cells are are disformed or creating uh, a cancer in your body, or a common cold, or certain things in your body, your cells can regenerate, and your body knows how to heal. Hasn't done it for a long time. It's just coming in to the vibrational knowledge that it has that ability. It doesn't mean that scientists don't believe that that's the it's a myth. They're looking to find out how those cells know how to do that. So light becomes a kind of language that cells use to communicate with one another. But the light has always been there in you. Okay. So when spiritual traditions speak to the body as light and vibration, they might be pointing out to, or pointing to a experiential truth that science is only just beginning to understand, finding the proper terms for it. They're not trying to prove spirituality yet. They're just trying to find out how the body works. And your higher being is telling you how your body works. So you're getting information from both. You get to have both of these dynamics within you, because you are a spiritual being. You get to speak the light language. Maybe the light language comes through in your meditation to heal your body, or maybe to sit and be present for someone who needs some vibrational healing, but doesn't know how to say it. Then the vibration doesn't have to say exactly what it is. When you're speaking a prayer, you speak a prayer for someone that might not be believing that you're speaking, and that's going against their higher or their free will. But maybe the action of your higher being speaking in light language is touching all areas that this person, you might be holding space for this person. So you're getting knowledge from your higher being, and then you're getting knowledge from from science or doctors or whatnot about your internal body. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you find that it's wrong, if it's not for your highest and greatest good, that's about you saying, okay, this information that Sandra's given me, that's not working for me. It's okay, because I'm not here to change minds. I'm not here to tell anybody that they're wrong. I'm not here to tell somebody that they need to stop being vegan because I'm not, or vegetarian because I'm not, or hearing somebody say, you need to be vegetarian because I am, and it works for me. And do you know that's energy? That's being energy ex, pushed out onto other people, right? Or to tell somebody, I believe in Christmas, so should you. Well, if they don't, they don't. If they don't like listening to music, or they don't like dancing, don't make them dance because you like dancing, because you think dance is going to help. help them heal if that's not where they're coming from. Maybe they're not wanting that vibration or that light, right? Hold on. Okay. So, it's not about proof of spirituality or proof of science. It's about taking in the information and then discerning it. And where it works for you, it works for you, right? It's a conversation starter between biology and awareness, which you are. You are awareness with the body or with biology. Blew me away. Okay, let's talk about section 4. Conscious quantum language and responsible bridging. Quantum physics is often misunderstood in spiritual places. So I'm going to be careful here. Quantum research shows that every small that at very small scales, I'm going to read this one, that particles have or behave like probabilities. They behave like probabilities in physical objects or solid objects. Okay. I knew me trying to wing it, I knew I was going to have to read it. Right? Observation and measurement affect the outcome. If you observe it, what are you giving it? How much of it are you giving it? Because particles are energy that are moving in waves. The moment, remember we talked about this in an earlier episode, that it's moving in a wave, it's going with the flow, and all of a sudden you observe it with whatever your thought is, or whatever your notion is, or whatever your perception is, and it becomes physical. It becomes part of your story, whatever that physicality is, right? It could become a situation, circumstance. It could become a conversation, right? The quantum research showed that reality is less fixed than it appears in an everyday scale. That in every day you focus on a particle, and it becomes material. Blew me away. But I had to say, oh, that makes sense. Now I understand quantum energy from a scientific point of view. And they're saying the same exact thing from a universal law point of view. Right? Okay. Some researchers asked whether consciousness plays a role in this. So that's the door opening. Some argue that it's only about the measurement and not about awareness. And some say the honest truth is we don't know. Growth and expansion, we don't know, right? So while spiritual teachers say consciousness creates reality, some say, well, that's a poetic interpretation, but not settled in science. But guess what? That's okay. Infinite possibilities. So how about maybe a more grounded way? Consciousness influences what we perceive, what we interpret, and respond to reality. And that alone is a possibility for our lives to be experienced profoundly. Infinite possibility. You don't need to understand quantum mechanics to understand that. It's just an infinite possibility. So, or you don't even have to put the word infinite in there. It's a possibility, not a probability, but a possibility. You shape your behavior, or your beliefs shape your behavior. Your emotional state affects your nervous system. Your nervous system affects your health. Your nervous system affects your relationships. Your nervous system affects your choices. And then that's already powerful enough, right? But we got more. How about chakras? We talked about that last week or the week before, about the aura and the outer field. But this time we're going to talk about it without dogma. Chakras are not your physical organs. They activate your organs. Chakras are believed to be the maps of your experiences. Each chakra corresponds loosely to your nerve plexus, your endocrine glands, and your emotional and development themes. Just basically, because we've already talked about that. When some people talk about their aura or their outer field, they're describing the sense that our presence extends beyond our skin, that our emotions are felt before words are even spoken, that we influence one another simply by being in proximity. Again, this doesn't require belief. It doesn't require belief in anything mystical either. Science believes humans are social mammals with highly attuned nervous systems. They've opened the door to understand more. So they don't believe that it requires anything mystical. This is all they can, it can all be figured out. It can all be mapped. And that's okay, because that's one side of the coin. And spirituality and that language is the same side of that coin with just different language. And I said it the correct way, the same side of that coin with just different language. You don't even have to flip the coin over. Okay. What spiritual language does is give us, or what it believes that is possible, that it gives us symbolic tools to work with the sensitivity of intentionality. Infinite possibilities. I say, let it be so, right? So now let's get to my favorite thing. Let's talk about light language, speaking in tongues, or vocal or written expression, right? Across culture and religions, humans have entered, they have altered, and they have expanded states of consciousness where law or the universal laws of language becomes nonlinear. Okay. In Christianity, it's called speaking in tongues. In shamanic tradition, it's called spirit language. Do you see where I'm going with this? In modern spiritual spaces, it's called light language. Neurologically, these states often involve reduced activity in analytical language center, increased activity in emotional and sensory areas, a shift in control to flow. And I'm going to tell you how these, when I read these neurological states, I said I was there in all three of them. The moment that I started, that that light language started opening up to me, there was a control that I would have to, when I started speaking, I would start speaking in English, right? And then when the divine wanted to come through, I was trying to control, holding on to that English and that thought and everything. And then through the increased activity of the emotion coming through, or that area being really sensitive to the energy coming through, I had to release or surrender to the divine and the flow and release the control. So I understand this, right? Some scientists believe that these sounds are, they believe that it doesn't mean that the sounds are divine commands or that they carry any literal translation. Where spirituality says it's the divine communicating with you. Why wouldn't the divine want to communicate with you? Why wouldn't it want to communicate with itself, with its creation that it created? Why wouldn't it want to communicate through its gifts? Okay. So a grounded way to understand light language is that it is an expressive state. This is what is believed, that it's an expressive state, not a communicative one, but expression is a communicator. Right? I just had to, that's what, science says. Science says, oh, it's expressive, it's about the emotion. But you're communicating your emotion. They believe it functions more in tone and chanting and humming and some somatic release through sound. But sound is communication. Okay? Sound bypasses the thinking mind. For some people, this feels regulating and freeing. For other people, it feels overwhelming and unnecessary. And both feelings are valid. Also understand this, light language is not a requirement of awakening. It's a gift. You can use it or not. It is not a sign of spiritual advancement. Just because I speak light language and somebody doesn't mean I am better or higher than them. No. They chose to answer maybe a different calling. or use a different gift. Right? It is simply a way consciousness moves through the body. Okay? Let's talk about discernment. Let's talk about safety. Let's talk about personal choice. Here's why that matters. Because this is where your empowerment is. If you practice anything or you don't practice something, you get to decide, does it disconnect you from your body if you're practicing it, or does it bring you into wholeness? If you're practicing something and it undermines your critical thinking or your discernment, and it takes you out of your wholeness, you get to ask that question, is this for my highest and greatest good? Again, are you creating dependency on scientific teachers or spiritual teachers, and it's not for your highest and greatest good? You need to discern it. Okay? If it's not for your conscious evolution of self, you have to ask yourself an embodying question. A real awakening might possibly look like you start to increase self-trust, or possibly start to improve on your emotional regulation, or deep dive into compassion, or strengthening your boundaries. Light language is a gift. It's optional. You can take it or not. You can use it or not. Energy work is optional. You can be a powerful energy worker, or you don't have to answer that call. The only thing that's essential is you being aware of that. And here in section 8, it's about integration. It's about you deciding for you and letting other people decide for themselves. It's not a question of, is light language real? Here's a question. You get to ask yourself, does this help me feel more present? Does it support my healing and my integration? Does it help me respect my autonomy and my own nervous system? I want you to remember, you don't have to adopt anyone's framework, not mine, not anybody, not your science teacher, and not your spiritual guru or your religious minister or pastor. You are allowed to be you are allowed to be courageous and curious and discerning. You are allowed to explore slowly or methodically. You are allowed to grow and expand. And you are certainly allowed to say no to anyone, to me. No, Sandra, that's not the way it's going to flow for me. And that's okay. Let that be so. It's about becoming more inhabited in who you are, your authenticity. Science is immersed in finding out more information. They're not trying to deceive you. They're telling you exactly what they believe based on information that they have right now. Power lives in your choices. Your choices. Your choices to be whoever you're going to be, with whatever gifts that the divine has opened to you. You get to say no to the divine. You certainly do. But get this, you are responsible when you say no. Right? You are responsible when you say no. Right? You're responsible when you say no to yourself, to your higher self. Just as you're responsible when you say no to your egoic self, or yes to your egoic self. When you know that oh, sorry, I just dropped my earring. It just went kaput. I'll find it. Hopefully I won't roll over it when I back my chair up. If it's to be, it's to be. But you're required, I'll just take this one off as well. You have to know that if you're getting information from your higher self and you're saying no, 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 you're responsible for the outcome. That's the same thing with your egoic self. If you're saying yes, yes, yes to your egoic self and you know that it doesn't feel right for your highest and greatest good, but you still go along with it because you say, well, I gotta just let that flow. You get what you get. Right? Scientists call that making choices. Spirituality calls that energy. Energy becoming whatever you give it cause to be. Taking that opportunity. So here we go. I want to thank you today. I hope that helps just a little bit because there's a lot deeper dive. I mean, I went down a glorious rabbit hole of information. Though I do, before we leave, I want to read something to you. Hold on a second. Hold on. I think it's in this book, right? And it's backwards, but it's called You Are the Universe by Deepak Chopra and Menes Kafatos. Okay. I'll show you the book again. Okay. And it says the qualia, and that's spelled Qualia principle. It's the foundation of a science of consciousness. Okay. Science is materialistic, accepting as a given that the physical universe exists as it presents itself. But quantum physics long ago undermine the very notion of physical objects. At its foundation, the universe isn't solid, tangible, or fixed. Therefore, the old science of an external physical universe has been mortally, wounded by the new science of quantum physics. Okay, I'm kind of the shadow is starting to come over here because the sun has now gone down out of my window. Okay. This ambiguity opens the door for an entirely new interpretation of nature, qualia science. If physicality is radically compromised, what can be taken as a reliable foundation for future science? The one constant that is rejected by materialists is called consciousness. Consciousness makes all experience possible. Attempts to exclude in from objective experiments cannot elude this fact. Qualia science begins with the assertion that consciousness is not a trait that evolved from a material basis until it fully emerged in human beings. Consciousness is fundamental and without cause. It is the ground state of existence. As conscious beings, humans cannot experience, measure, or conceive of a reality devoid of consciousness. Consciousness is the ground state of normal reality. It behaves like a field in all respects, like quantum fields for matter and energy. As in any field, consciousness reacts or interacts with itself. This interaction proliferates into every specific form of consciousness, such as our own. And in parentheses, it says, consciousness did not arise as a secondary property of atoms or molecules over time. But it must be understood that there is a deeper level of consciousness that has no dimensions because any dimension in space-time contains qualia. And in itself, pure consciousness has no qualia. It is the source of qualia, just as the quantum vacuum is the source of quanta. Consciousness can be considered the field of all fields, since it is the field that makes possible the existence of all fields. Every specific form of consciousness, whether it be an elephant, a porpoise, a rhesus monkey, or a person, experiences the world subjectively. Individual subjectivity remains within the field of consciousness, which is its source. No form of consciousness is isolated from its source, just as no electromagnetic activity is ever isolated from the universe held in, or held, I'm sorry, not held, from the universal field of magnetism. Okay. So one more. For human beings, subjective experiences are the form of sensation, images, feelings, and thoughts. They spell that SIFT. Sensations, images, feelings, and thoughts. The general term for these is qualia, and that's spelled Qualia. Subjective reality is a vast composite of different qualia, such as color, light, pain, pleasure, texture, taste, memory, desire, anxiety, and joy. And all subjective experiences are qualia. This includes your perception, your cognitive and mental events. So I leave you with this. I thank you for joining me on my Soul Awakening podcast series. I hope that these insights have into this quantum energy, into this quantum consciousness, into this personal growth, inspire you to explore your own energy, to expand your own awareness, and to step into a higher vibration. Remember, this is a journey. Your awareness, your curiosity, your intention is what's going to shape your past. I'm looking forward to seeing you next Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for another series, a new series. So stay tuned for that information. It's going to come across your feed, and I hope you will join me. So until then, keep noticing your energy. Let yourself be guided through your growth and your expansion. I'm Sandra from Soul Awakening with Sandra, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you.